nowadays women think they can go places by themselves and do all kinds of things that I don't really agree that they should be doing. But
nobody gives them any permission.
Yeah, no, they don't even ask their husband. And some people say, well, their husband's dead. Well, then they ask their oldest son. And if they don't have any sons, well, then they ask their minister.
Maybe a neighbor. Guy they see walking down the street.
Yeah, some strange male teenager on the street would have more authority to give her permission to travel.
Or not. Or deny, right?
Or deny. Say, yeah, you're not going nowhere. I don't want to be behind you in line. I am a grown-ass man. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Shooting Left of Center podcast. I'm joined tonight, as usual, by everybody's pal, Gun Websites. Say hello.
Well, you caught me off guard. I don't have my mute on. Welcome. Thanks for the invite.
I think I kind of started suddenly. But welcome, everybody. If you've got any questions for us, let us know. Make sure you put at the Yankee Marshal in front of them, or you send them to that PayPal address up at the beginning if you want to do a super chat. Let me know. I will do our best to address them. The first comment we got coming in here, it says, "Hail Phil." It's from Kevin Payton. He says, "Hail Phil, thinking about a 6 MOA red dot for my carry gun. MOA only covers 1.5 inches of target at 25 yards. Easier to pick up 6 MOA dot. What do you and Gwebs think? What do you prefer for an MOA? Do you think 6 is too big for an MOA for a self-defense dot?
My default is I don't like red dots, so I don't like them. If I had to pick something, then it depends. If you've got some kind of issue with your eyes, that's probably why they make them. Mm-hmm. But what we're saying here is there's a dot in the middle of a red dot optic, and how big is that dot going to be? If the bigger you make it, you really can't shoot accurately small. Mm-hmm. Like you're never going to hit a golf ball if the thing is the size of a softball, right? Yeah. So I'm not a fan of the big giant ones, just in theory. But that being said, again, depending on where you live or what your circumstances are, there might be a reason for it. But I think there's more use for a gun than just whatever the scenario you got going on in your head that you think a big dot is good for. And for like the other practical, like potential uses of a gun where you might actually have to shoot accurately, why hinder your own ability?
I kind of agree. I don't like the big dots. I mean, I like red dots because I do have bad eyes, and I don't wear glasses. But I don't go bigger than a 3-inch. 3 inches like as big as I'll go, but I don't go smaller than a 2 because a 1-inch MOA dot is so tiny. It's like a little pinprick of light, and it's real easy for me to lose it when I'm tracking. So I like the 2-inch so I can see it better. I like 3-inch because I can see it really well, but I like 2-inch because it's more accurate. But 3 inches is where I usually end up is a 3-inch MOA. I was going to send you this last night when I came across it, but I figured you didn't want to hear it. But sending it now, figured you might now because I know you have an open mind. I don't want to hear someone reinterpreting a document I already read. If it's just that guy doing his little report on it, everything they say is false. The document clearly states that if the mechanism failed and then you did these things, this could happen, but we weren't able to reproduce that happening. That's called a failed hypothesis, period. People trying to turn it into something it isn't is people grasping at straws because they have nothing else. So I am not interested in it. If someone comes out with some actual evidence showing a gun going off on its own or showing how they can recreate the gun going off on its own, something like that, then that's something to think about. But just someone's opinion about a report to where they interpret it to say something it doesn't say after I've read it, that I'm not interested in. And I can't understand why so many people are interested in it. Nothing against you for sending it, but no, I'm not interested. I've heard so many people's opinions. I want to hear them back it up with some fact, not just reinterpreting a document that doesn't say something.
One of the reasons I go off on 9mm all the time is because it's like a shorthand way for me to be frustrated at all the holy crap. How many times have we dealt with cycles of whatever the issue is? And, caliber, stopping power. I mean, since the beginning of time, these things have been issues. So I don't think it's ever going to go away. And but I think that we can have, what's the word, like insight to our own community to know that we can be duped by these things. And in the bigger picture, we get suckered into shit. That's why I resist a lot of this shit. But essentially, anybody can come by with a new checkering, new grip angle, whatever the fuck new thing it is, and then say, aha, that one, the current new thing is bad because, and I've got the solution for it. And they just know from history that if they come out and say something controversial about the current new thing, everybody's going to stop and fucking look, right? It's just, it's just those tale as old as time, and it's
theatrics.
Yeah.
And those of us that have been around for a while, we've seen this same story. We saw it with Glocks when police departments first took Glocks into their service. They were like, these guns go off on their own. The NDs have jumped 800%. Accidental woundings have jumped 1,200%.
If we were old ass, it would be double action revolvers. Like, who needs a double action revolver? We've gone all this time with our single actions, and they can't go off. You can twiddle around. You can twirl around a single action. You can't do that with a double action. Yeah, this is just the name it. Like, we had lever actions and they were fine. Now we have these semi-autos. You can bump fire a semi-auto.
Well, it's that right there. What you just said, similar to like all these lawsuits right now against Glock from these states saying that they're too easily modified to be, illegal. They can go full auto and all this stuff. Well, we saw the same thing probably happened when semi-automatics first came around. And the same thing happened definitely when polymer guns started coming around. They were like, these things are too easy to modify. They can make fully automatic weapons out of them. So this is just, it's cyclical, and different people fall for it every time, and they do it because
if they're just like 30 years old, they bought their first gun. How do they fucking know that there's going to be a cycle where they're going to fucking be?
You listen to your elders who have experience.
No, that's a good point. Yeah, we don't really have a community that does that though, right? Like, we mock each other. We fucking don't really have much. We have a little bit of regard for like the Clint Smiths and the Coopers, but even then we don't have reverence to where we're like, we don't like the 4 rules of gun safety. Some people like 3, some people like 5. You know what I mean? Like, we don't have like, what's that called? Like, where we just have ceremonial, like, or whatever, like hands off. Like, we don't
have a dogma in the gun community.
Yeah.
It's everybody is always. It's like, even with like tactical trainers and gun designers, every couple of years, they're acting like, the past 200 years, people didn't know what they were doing when they held their guns.
Yep. But no one could have ever done anything till I came around and came up with this.
Can you believe that all these guys who were expert shooters for decades and decades and decades never figured out how they're supposed to hold their gun hand over the barrel of their rifle when they're shooting? We figured that out. So come learn how to do it from us. Yeah. It's just, that happens again and again and again, and things come and things go. And the only difference between the hysteria with the SIG P320 and the hysteria with the Glocks when police started buying them is that there was no internet really magnifying it. And there was nobody that was making money by magnifying it. And no one being paid by organizations that want to magnify it. So, you got gun tubers that, get paid by just big distributors of Glocks, etc. And of course, they want to slam P320. The Bloomberg Group, they have been trying for years, and according to them, been successful to a degree in getting in with gun guys on the internet and having them say things like that are damaging to different manufacturers because it benefits them. So I don't listen to these guys unless they come to me with some evidence, which there's no evidence. And the FBI report provides no evidence of a gun ever going off on its own. In fact, it empirically states this was our hypothesis. And if the system that keeps it from doing this was to somehow fail, it's possible for it to happen. But we've never been able to confirm it happening, and we were never able to make it happen. And when you form a theory, when you form a hypothesis in science, when you go to the actual table and you start trying to do it, Like if you say if we put A in B, then C happens, and you put A in B 100 times and C never happens, you have to say my theory was faulty because there's no evidence. And until someone can put A in B and make C happen, we have to assume we were wrong. But it's just the opposite with some people. They just want to believe what they want to believe. I don't know what it's mostly Glock fanboys. I've seen a lot of that. It's also these shill gun channels who want to be like, I've got a scoop on how dangerous this gun is. That made a name for themselves doing that. And there's no substance to it whatsoever. And every time I say, hey, all you guys out there, all you guys that put these videos up, I go on your channel and I leave comments saying, hey, either come in my chat or invite me in yours and let's talk about the real evidence. None of them do, not one, because they know they don't have evidence. It's the same reason, that a lot of politicians don't go into debates. They just like to give speeches because in a speech, no one challenges you. And everyone in the audience, all the lazy people will just believe you because they didn't hear any counterpoints. If you're actually on stage with someone else and they're debating you, well, then even the lazy people hear two different sides and they have to decide which side they want to believe. And they'll usually go with whichever one benefits their own personal beliefs, but they still have to think that way. That's why these people only do speeches. They never do debates because they know they don't have anything to back up what they say.
I heard that's why Matt doesn't show up anymore because he has no evidence.
Yeah, he no evidence. He doesn't have any evidence that he's not working for the government, rounding us all up. He's turned informant on all of us. Actually, I think he's a male prostitute now. That's my theory. That's why he can't be here for these shows because he's working evenings. Makes perfect sense to me. If you're out working the corner from 6 to 2, you can't be at these shows.
I just jumped immediately to like the 7 p.m. elderly lady gigolo bingo hall prostitute.
Yeah, the afternoon hooker, the daytime hookers. Like, remember what's out on? Was it My Name Is Earl? Patty, the daytime hooker.
I remember that. I haven't watched that show in forever. I should probably watch that show again.
Yeah. I see that woman on lots of things. She was also on Vice Principals and she played a dyke on Vice Principals. She's pretty funny. She's not much to look at, but she's pretty funny. So yeah, I'm just tired of hearing people's opinions when they're just struggling, doing mental gymnastics to make it look like there's evidence of something there's no evidence of. In fact, there's counter evidence of. Even in the FBI report, the FBI report is not evidence of it happening. It's counter evidence because in the end, they conclude that their hypothesis is not recreatable or even creatable. So that is not evidence. That's evidence to the contrary. Most people don't know how it works. It's the FBI research report. Not that I have any confidence in the FBI, but if anyone had some weight, it might be them keeping the open mind. And maybe I read the report. I actually read the actual report. Sat down here at my computer and read the motherfucker. It's boring as hell. It was very clear at times that the people who were making these judgments had very little understanding of what they were saying sometimes. And when you say, well, if the mechanism were to fail, this and this, well, that's saying nothing. That's like saying, if someone is saying, oh, well, you don't buy a Honda Accord because the brakes fail on them. They just fail and the gas pedal goes on its own. They just take off and run into trees when you're least expecting it. And if someone came out with a report and they said, well, if the brakes were to fail and the computer was to malfunction and push the gas, well, then it is possible that these cars could just start taking off and hitting trees for no reason. But we were never able to make it happen, and we've never seen it happen. Well, that means it's not happening. It just means that someone created a fanciful hypothesis and potential scenario and said whether in the realm of all cosmic possibility could it happen with special circumstances. that's not saying anything. And like, just like I'm saying, if you say, well, if the brakes failed, but you don't say how the brakes would fail, what would cause the brakes to fail? And you say, well, if the computer decided to say, give it gas, but you don't say how the computer or why the computer did that, that weakens your story even more. Then you don't even need to get to but we couldn't make it happen and we've never seen it happen, because you've already not really explained what could happen. So you're really not delving deep enough or know enough about your subject. So the FBI report in no way supports what we're talking about. And like I said, I have challenged every single person who makes these points to come and show me something I haven't seen. Show me a video that shows the gun going off on its own. Like that one we just talked about, the grainy, distant footage of someone slamming a gun around in a backpack and it goes off. There it is. No, that isn't it. That is what happens when you put guns in backpacks and sling them around. Just like in all the cases against the P320, where it was in a purse without a holster, where it was in a gym bag without a holster, where it was wrapped up in some towels in a gym bag without a holster. Every single circumstance is one where you have to say beforehand, that circumstance could make a striker fire gun go off, period. You could end up pulling the trigger. And because that circumstance exists in every one of those instances, then jump into the illogical conclusion that guns are just firing on their own is not just silly, but it's stupid. It's not just ignorant, but it's stupid. But so many people do it, and it surprises me how many people do it, because I can tell you right now, I am not smart enough for this many people to be stupider than I am, that they can't understand the basics of how these hypotheses would work and what would constitute evidence. But it seems like there are that many people that stupid. Maybe it just seems skewed because it's the internet, and just maybe there's a higher number of stupid people on the internet. But
I don't think there's I get what you're saying. Like, it's annoying that for me, you're nicer than I am. I think of it as the people that do this. Now, if you're brand new, like you've been on the scene for like 6 months and you have a fit about like a SIG, okay, go nuts. You got to learn sometime. But if you've been here 6 years and you know the bullshit cycles and you're exploiting it, fuck you. Because what you're doing is you're taking attention and time and people's energy away from the things that matter. And we could have gotten rid of the NFA by now. So I see it as we had a lot of potential talking about guns all the damn time. And if we all had a different type of vibe going on in the community, where we were all like a little bit more, like if there was just a presence of, I want to say leadership, but like understanding that like we have been taking this, like fucking people don't pay attention. Me and Yankee and Matt have been doing this fucking show for however many years because we're friends or whatever. But in the fucking time we've been doing this show, I say swears too much, people get mad, I swear. When we've been doing the show for so long, that there was no CCW in most of the states. I don't remember what it was because I don't remember when we started, but it was like 2009. Like, somebody go look it up. How many states?
The majority of states didn't have carry.
No CCW, like not concealed, not constitutional, just CCW. And we would have conversations. And I remember like there had to be more than one conversation where people were like, Illinois will never have CCW. Let's move on past that. We'll never get Illinois. Like, we'll never have. Oops, California got it. Oops, Illinois got it. And then we started taking on constitutional carry. Like, we've accomplished so effing much as a community that it drives me nuts that idiot, exploiter, loser, sucks are going to do what you're talking about and have like, let's have a conversation about SIG versus blah, blah, blah. Like, no, let's not. Let's let those videos exist. Go back and watch them if you want. The good thing about content existing is you don't have to go redo it over and over. So you don't have to be stupid, right? You don't have to live like some kind of dumb shit where you have to start over every, like Groundhog's Day. Like, we should be compounding, right? We should be moving forward all the damn time. Yep. So anyway, I think of it as a little bit like those people.
And I agree. The people who want to exploit situations for profit, the ones that put profit ahead of progress, where progress is not profitable. So they want to keep people mired in the situations and mired in their misery and mired in their, and
they can't take credit for the success, right? They can go, I was part of the success, but that doesn't enough for them. They need to fucking be like, I'm the one people come to find out like which SIG is right or not.
Yeah, exactly. And it just, that gets on my nerves. The profiteers, the fear mongers. I was telling people the other day that one of the things that disappoints me and frustrates me, especially with YouTube, one of the things that frustrates me with YouTube is they're more than happy to allow divisive voices to stay on. They encourage them. They want bad examples of the gun community to stay. And they want to get rid of people that say, hey, screw our differences. We're all Americans and we should all care about the Second Amendment. And let me tell you why. They don't want that. And I've been told to my face they don't want that. They want enough channels that people on the left can look at and go, see, those are the people we don't want having guns. They want them visible. And they want the crazy liberals visible so everybody else on the right can look at them and go, that's what we don't want our kids becoming. That's what we don't want our country becoming. That's what they want. They want to maintain that 50-50 division, and they don't want anything that messes with that 50-50 division. They don't want anyone that says, the reality is somewhere between the crazy liberal kid and the right-wing nut job. The reality isn't either of those two extremes. They don't want that on the internet. And one of the things that bothers me a lot about the gun community online is there was so much potential. There was so much potential for people to come together, to share, to spread knowledge, to spread awareness, to welcome people. Everyone, no matter where they lived, had access to a bunch of pro-gun guys at any moment that they could just talk shit with or learn from. And it was awesome. It was nothing but potential. But then the big money advertisers got a hold of it. The profiteers, the gun groups, etc. Anybody that had a horse in the game and saw dollar signs decided that status quo makes more money than progress. And that's where we end up mired in an online community that I think is not representative of the gun community as a whole. It only represents a small fraction of the gun community that want to be angry, that want to be sad, that want to be, defeatist. And that's all that's represented in now. And it just is such a shame.
Because there is no natural ability, because we are kind of ruined, fucked with by lots of different ways, because there's misunderstandings about guns, right? We don't have to tell each other. We know we're getting wailed on. But that's a great point. That's an interesting point. I never thought of it that way.
Yeah, it just that's one of the things that makes me saddest is the potential for the gun community online was just squandered, because the gun community as a whole is so different than what you see online.
It is, and what I hear what you're saying. Like, in order to be successful online, one, you have to be able to willing, I guess, to go through all the bullshit. And the only people that are willing to go through the bullshit for any length of time are the completely stubborn sons of bitches like us.
Yeah.
And then the people that are making money. And you can't make money. I mean, fuck, if it was make money just playing with guns. I mean, there was a way back in the day we made money just playing with guns, but they've removed that. And now the only way to really make money is to play the controversial bullshit game and exploit that.
You can't.
At least I shouldn't say that's the only way, but that's the only way. That's the only people we see persisting. And it's because they're funded by, I'm going to say I used to say it all the time. We needed agents back in the day because we were all getting, not rich, but some of us were getting super rich, but we were getting paid to play. And that isn't a good, when you get paid for your hobby, people don't, the community didn't transition into being paid well. Like, so what happened is the people came in who were like agents they came from the gaming community and they knew how to exploit the gamers because they were just kids playing games, and all of a sudden they were rich, so they knew how to come in and take over, and they played those games with the gun community, and we're dealing with the results of that, really. And nothing came in. None of the national level organizations had the wherewithal or the thought to say, wait a minute, we have the ability to come in and help guide through this. They fucking were all squabbling with each other and worrying about little bullshit things.
Well, and they ignored the online community completely. I mean, even things like SHOT Show, they're like, SHOT Show started off with, keep those fucking YouTubers out of here. Keep those Instagram people out of here. And then they were like, those YouTubers and Instagram people, we got to get them in here because they're the only way we're going to have a voice. So they changed their opinions pretty quickly. But like I said, and then another problem that happened, which why it's so hard to be an honest gun tuber. If you're an honest gun tuber, it's going to be hard to make money because you're either going to have to sell your opinions to big money interests and toe their line, or you're just going to have to be a shill for anything that a distributor wants to sell. And those are the two main sources to money now. And what happened that was so bad that made the gun community so vulnerable is a lot of these guys, like you said, started off having fun with their hobby, then started making more money with their hobby than they were with their job. Well, they quit their jobs and they just started being gun tubers. And then YouTube said, we don't like guns, so we're going to stop giving y'all as much money. And then those people were like, but I quit my job.
Yeah.
And then when they said that happened,
or I was making so much money that I bought a new fucking mansion and all this fucking huge fucking pile of toys and probably put some of that on credit cards, not all of it, because these people were making millions of dollars. So, but anyway, then they got kind of used to making millions of dollars. It's pretty easy.
And then because they went, what am I going to do now? I've gotten used to getting pedicures every day and living in a mansion and quit my job. That's when the predatory people stepped in and went, hey, you want to keep making that kind of money? Well, then start selling these opinions. Start helping us maintain the status quo. Start helping us keep people divided. That's how they got preyed upon, because they're like, now you either do it our way, the big money interests, the big power interests, you do it our way or you starve. And so many people that would normally be honest or just wanted to play with guns ended up having to pretend like there's always a black and white answer to everything. You always answer on the answer from one side of the aisle, not the other. It's 50% of the U.S. against 50% of the U.S. That whole, we're 100% halfway divided on guns, and we'll never ever make any progress because them damn liberals. It's the same type of mindset that's like when people say, oh, those immigrants stole my job, not my boss gave my job to an immigrant. Or, China stole all of our manufacturing jobs, not the billionaires that owned the manufacturing plants moved to China. You're blaming the wrong people. And that's the same thing with the gun community. They allowed themselves to blame the wrong people for the woes of the Second Amendment when it wasn't just, grandma liberal on the street that was passing these laws. It was big money interests and politicians working together to disarm the people, you and the grandmother. So, and like I said, because these people had quit their jobs, got used to making lots of money, they were easily preyed upon by these people that use them now to maintain the status quo.
Mm-hmm. And this isn't like, we made money for 3 months, so everybody quit their job. Like,
no, it was years.
This was the internet bubble. Happened in the 90s, so people were aware that the world was changing to the electronics and the internet, blah, blah. But the internet was started to get fast in early 2000s. So that's when the internet went to full speed and people started using their phones and phones became smartphones. So the internet really took off and people started to see the internet as not just these bubbles of interest, but there's some long-term legs here. And, YouTube is a big chunk. It's been around for a while. We've seen some things come and go. We've got these stable things now. So it was like a couple of years worth of, here's some real money. And I wasn't making ever real money compared to some of the people that really.
Well, we were small one-man shows.
Yeah, once you had a couple of people, you could make some serious scratch. And, now you have to hire.
A lot of guys did that.
Oh, fuck yeah. We all know
they hired a cameraman, they hired an editor, they hired a PR guy
because they were all competing with each other.
Yep.
And that's where, again, if we would have had some awareness, which 2020 hindsight, we had no fucking idea. It's easy to say this now, but I did get frustrated. That's why Every Second Matters exists, dude. We all got frustrated at the end of 2013 that we weren't doing more with our potential as a bunch of resources. We knew we were shit tons of resources, and we've done some amazing shit kind of happening without any organization, right? So with some organization, we could have done some really cool shit. But anyway, here nor there, I want to address some of the questions. I don't think people were dumb. I don't think gun owners are dumb. I think that it's just that, like I say, we're a hobby for a lot of people. It's just like they bought a motorcycle, that's their hobby. They bought a 3D printer, that's their hobby. I don't know, they bought a fucking air fryer, that's their hobby, right? Some people bought a gun because they're scared. 99% of people buy a gun because they're scared. Now it's their hobby. They learn how to shoot it. They learn how to fix it, whatever they're going to learn how. And then it's like, okay, it's in the closet. They use it once in a while. It's just another thing. So, and there's no fucking rule. There's no rule that says you have to spend all your time worrying about your gun, right? I'm all for people who just buy a gun casually and then, kind of have some interest in it. But that being said, I think that's, just like car owners, nobody gives a crap about their cars all that much. If some weird, I don't know, like thing was infiltrating the country to like make cars illegal or something, like who would really be worried about that? Ford people don't care that much about their Fords, So I think that we're just vulnerable because it's sort of a passion for some of us, but not all of us.
Yeah, and it's not just the guns for a lot of us. It's the whole concept of not wanting to be bullied by the 1%. And that's what ends up if you look through history, eventually, even when a country starts off free and relatively equal to opportunities, etc., eventually all the power and money consolidate with 1 or 2% of the population, and then those people basically rape everybody else for as long as they possibly can until their society collapses. And people that can look forward a little bit while still looking back and seeing what did happen don't want that happening again, at least not in their lifetime or their children's lifetimes. So many people are so short-sighted, and they don't look back and say, well, look at all the things that Hitler did, and look at all the things Nero did, and look at all the things, all these leaders through history did. First thing they did was convince everybody that the other half of the people were the problem. The problem is, it isn't, you don't have enough food on your table, not because me and all my buddies, we take 90% of the food, even though we're only 10% of the people. You don't have it because that other poor family has some. If you had their food, you'd have enough. So you blame them instead of blaming the people that are actually taking 90% of the food. And that never leads anywhere good. And the gun community has really become an exclusive tent where people have appointed themselves, the bouncers for the gun community. We stand at the door and we keep out the undesirables. And we don't need that. We've never needed that. Anyone who comes into the gun community who's an undesirable gets weeded out pretty fast on their own. So we don't need bouncers. We don't need people that tell us what you have to believe to be a true gun supporter. You don't have to be pro-choice or anti-abortion to be a gun owner. You don't have to be conservative fiscally or liberal fiscally to be a gun supporter. You don't have to you don't have to love Reagan or Obama to be a gun supporter. But too many people in the gun community have tied all these things together. And now anyone that I've tried to get people to come to the gun community, come to the forums and stuff like that back in the day, even before YouTube was a thing. And unfortunately, these type of online things, I would have people come and they'd be like, yeah, I was there for like a day and I already got called, a godless bastard, told I was going to go to hell, and told that gay people are disgusting, whatever their personal issue was, they got bombarded with that in the gun forum. So they didn't want to be a part of it anymore. And we just got to get that stuff out of the gun community. It isn't the majority people at all. It's the minority, but it's the loudest minority. So we really need to start working on that. We need to start working on growing the tent, because people always ask me, how are we going to eventually win? And I'm like, we'll eventually win through two ways, through the courts and through public opinion, because politicians ain't going to do anything for us. They're going to do for whatever's more profitable. And as long as the rich don't want us armed and able to fight back, that ain't what's going to be profitable. So,
well, starting in 2015, we definitely had a broadening of the community, and for lots of reasons, and it was organic. And I 100% think it was the internet and then Obama's executive actions. While the news wasn't going to challenge it, right? The mainstream news was going to say, "Oh, this sounds reasonable," or "There's a concern," but they're never going to give our face of the concern, our side of the concern. They're just going to maybe suggest that there's a concern about Obama's thing, but usually they dismiss our side of it. So I think that treatment,
or bring the craziest example of our side they can online to make us look bad.
the worst person you were just talking about as like the typical gun owner, right? But I think that exaggerated treatment, I'm just assuming this because so many diverse like groups of people came to the scene in 2015. It obviously something happened that uprooted a lot of people, and like just a number of things. The way that the internet existed, that there was already some history of internet, so people knew that they could do something if they felt like it. They saw that things had happened but hadn't either come to fruition or had ended, because so many things. Let's talk about Campus Carry. It's a real easy example. Another reason Every Second Matters happened is because Campus Carry is very difficult to get off the ground. Whoever instigates it is in school for 4 years and then they're gone. So that kind of stuff usually has like a very...
You just have to weather it for a while.
Yeah. So we knew that there was these issues or whatever. Anyway, so in 2015, we had this massive group of people who didn't like look at each other and all say, yeah, and like lift at the same time, but they actually did lift from all directions at the same time. And some of those organizations are still there, the ones that had the best like chance or whatever. Some of them, in spite of themselves, are still here. Some of them passed by the wayside. Some of them just don't need to exist anymore. But then, you know, we had 2020. We've had some other shit go on throughout that time frame. And we certainly haven't seen like an interest in diversity or an interest in the growing of the tent or whatever you want to call like the awareness that gun ownership is fucking massive and ballooning. It has happened, but there hasn't been organizations to guide it or like foster it or anything, or to just shine a light on it. Now, I think about now, I'm trying to put all this in my head together, but you know, right before the bullshit of 2020, a lot of new organizations started up, and I think that was in response to the frustration of the like efforts of those 2015, like, and some of it was like, well, the one in 2015 did it this way, but I want to do it this way, and we do need a new organization. So I'm going to say, just finish up with this to say that what we did have a failure is with the Gun Rights Policy Conference. As much as I'm a fan of that, I started going in 15 because that's essentially the same thing every year over and over and over again, which for a long time was adequate because people would, again, kind of have a lifespan there. They would go for a number of years and then quit going because it's the same thing every year. They feel like, okay, I've been there. I've done it. You know, I've got that under my belt. It's like going to a class. I've done it before. They think that's fine. But what the industry, what the community, what we fucking needed as activists, and, you know, in 2020 hindsight, what the world needed was fostering of those groups that in 2015, they were brand new. By 2018, you know, they were, what do you call that? Like when they're teetering, like they probably haven't been super successful. None of them were super successful, but they were like not successful where, you know, but with some financial help, a little bit of boost of, you know, confidence, they probably could have just taken over and been, I don't know what to call it, like the Benetton ad of NRA, right? Like, because we had so much fucking stuff. I mean, like everything you can think of, like seriously, there was an organization for it. Anyway, so I think that what we had was just, and I don't think they did it like, it's my ball, I don't want to share. I just don't think they were fucking aware. Like they just didn't realize that they were just, they still don't realize they do the same fucking thing every year. So I don't like to shit on them, but they just aren't aware. They're old people and they don't understand that what they're doing doesn't bring people in. What people do is they visit and go, oh, I'm not welcome here, and they don't come back. And they keep doing it over and over and don't realize what they're actually doing now is plowing a fucking rift instead of.
Yeah. What really got me is when we went to the Gun Rights Policy Conference, and, you know, Alan Gottlieb, what's his son's name?
I forget, but yeah, his kid.
I forget his name. But I'm talking to him, and they're talking like, well, we're thinking of doing this, 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 and this. And I'm like, well, those are the same old things that they did 10 years ago and 20 years ago. And none of those things are good ideas. Or we're going to put this person in charge. You mean the guy that is actively hurting the gun community? You're going to put that guy in charge because of the way he sees things? I'm like, these are just all bad decisions. And how many times can you sit around and watch people make the same bad decisions without saying, I don't want to be watching this anymore? And like you said,
it gets sad. It gets fucking like watching an old person who has dementia saying the same shit or telling you the same fucking story about the lake. It's like, you got to listen, but after a while, you just don't show up and listen to the lake story anymore.
Yeah. And you said the right word there a minute ago when you said activists. we need activists. We don't have very many activists. Activists are not good at organizing. In fact, the only successful real activists in the world you see are ones that get backed up by people who are good at organizing. But in the gun community, the activists weren't backed up by the big powers. The big powers saw the activists as, well, that's a complete rewriting of the way I see the gun community, so I'm not behind that. So all the activists just, they were left unattended. They got distracted by something shiny and wandered off. So
they got poor, they got clobbered on, they got frustrated, they couldn't. And there's such a big world. Like a couple of them felt isolated, I'm sure, which was unnecessary. But yeah, anyway.
So we need more activists and less industry in this.
Ghazi says the definition of insanity is. I hear you what you're saying. I don't think that we're over by any means, because the people who are the status quo or the people I think Yankee rages against the most, which I would if I had the passion to bitch about them. I just don't like these people, so I just don't talk about them. Anyway, they're lazy as fuck. Like, they will do nothing. They won't lift a fucking finger. They'll exploit anything that comes their way. They're like a big alligator or something. They'll eat whatever comes their way, but they ain't swimming around. So the fact that they are living high and fat right now, who gives a fuck? Because anything we do different will just happen, and they will eventually follow, but they are not actively doing anything to make it go their way. They're just like bottom feeders. Everything's sinking, so they're able to feast, but they're not really affecting any change. Every once in a while they get in the way, but they don't do fucking shit.
Yeah, they don't get away much because they're never at anything where you're trying to make a difference. Like, they only come to something if they're paid to be there.
And the only people that pay them are the fucking losers, so they only show up at their own events and shit.
Yeah, exactly. Well, this turned into a real bitch fest tonight. But I want to thank everybody for coming and sticking around with us to the end here. I appreciate it. I want to thank Gwebs for showing up. You got anything you want to say before we get out of here? Because I'm about to wet myself.
No, I just always like to throw out there that Sharon has a Give, Send, Go, try to help with some cancer stuff. So over on my X, I've got one pinned to the top there. If you got a couple of bucks as capitalist, let's flex that muscle and help her out. She's a activist in the Washington area.
Yeah, Welper could probably find it and put the link in there for us. But thanks everybody for coming. I appreciate it. We'll read like orders and stuff tomorrow. I didn't get a chance to tonight. You know how things go when we do this. So I'll catch back up tomorrow. I hope to see everybody then. Until then, remember, always carry and stay safe till I see you again. Hey everybody, Yankee here. Before we go, I just want to take a second to remind everyone that this channel is 100% viewer funded. We don't take a penny from advertisers, retailers. We don't take money from political organizations. There's no one telling me what I need to tell you. Everything that we do is done through the generosity of our viewers, either buying merchandise or becoming a patron or a Subscribe Star member. You're all the ones that support Pets and Vets and TYMP. And that's the reason I can stay true to myself and loyal only to the people who watch my channel. And I can spend my time talking about what I want to talk about, telling what I think needs to be said, and giving you my uncensored take on things I think you need to hear. So if you'd like to help keep things that way, please support the channel by becoming a patron, a Subscribe Star supporter, or just going over to my web store and buying some merch. The links are all in the upper corner of this video.